It has been a while since we've reviewed a Final Fantasy game on the show. Guess what? It is time for Final Fantasy Type-0
HD.
Final Fantasy Type-0 HD. Now, if this game looks familiar to you, it was originally released in 2011, and I believe it was on the PlayStation Portable,
yes,
which predated the Vita.
That's right. You would have had to have imported the game, though, because it was never released in North America. But what Square did is they decided to make it a port for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, so here we are.
You know, I got to tell you that I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan. I've been really down on the last couple of Final Fantasies, especially Final Fantasy 13, which I still occupies a very burned sore spot in the middle of my chest. Final Fantasy 12, my favorite through the history of Final Fantasies. Let's talk about Type-0 HD. You load this thing up, and basically you're playing anywhere from 12 to 14 different characters over the course of the game. They're all school kids, it looks like. I guess all the people in Final Fantasy world look like school kids. they all have hair. It looks kind of like your hair.
Or your hair.
Well, mostly we're talking about your hair.
Okay.
And they got monsters to fight. They got some leveling up to do.
I actually dug this whole Hogwarts combat school type thing that they have going on in this game. It's an excruciating beginning portion of the Enterprise, though. You really feel like you're just loaded with all kinds of terms and, you know, information about all of this long war that has been going on. You're thrust into this stuff. You don't know what the hell they're talking about.
You don't.
Everybody's talking about different weapons and the power of crystals.
And your first weapon is you throw cards at people.
You have cards, you have magic spells and things like that, and you can level up every one of the different weapons, you can level up every one of the different characters, you can pick your party as the circumstance demands. But then they've also engineered a pretty interesting overworld map dynamic where you can get into these tactical battles, and that's when the game started to turn for me. It's a little tedious. You get into these early stage battles which are a little
third-person action, Devil May Cry light kind of experiences.
And they don't work as well as they should.
Listen, I admire the breadth and the depth, and once again, another Final Fantasy world that is huge and just keeps growing and growing and expanding. There's so many different ways you can do things, but I also feel like I don't ever really connect inherently with the narrative of what's going on here. I don't really care about any of these characters. I hope I'm winning. I hope I'm doing all the right things. How much do I want to commit to this world? I just went through something similar, although much deeper, with more soul in Bloodborne, and it just feels like these are two huge games that came out in relatively the same time frame, and I feel like it's a little too much. I only have room for one huge game at a time, and I kind of feel like I'm holding out for Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this game, is that it actually comes with a demo for Final Fantasy 15, and I know that that's going to be a big part of the reason why a lot of people are picking up Type-0 HD, but I think you will also, if you give this game time, I think you're going to find a lot to like here. I did. I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's still a fun game. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 6.5, and I cannot wait for 15. Come on out, baby.